Offering services every day to thousands and even millions of people is an amazing challenge from a scale perspective. More specifically, take workforce development programs run by cities and states. They are extremely important, and as they support so many people with an array of services that range from job matching opportunities, personal development via job coaching, self-service resources, to just name a few. And I have learned a lot about how running such meaningful programs requires extensive coordination across applicants, employers, community partners, and sharing knowledge broadly. 2020 brought many challenges, especially as in-person operations were shut down, and many were left vulnerable to unemployment. The state of Rhode Island responded to these challenges by modernizing their workforce development operations and moving completely to an online platform called the Virtual Career Center, also nicknamed VCC. It was developed in partnership with Google Cloud and a nonprofit called Research Improving People's Lives, and the VCC was fully built by Google Cloud partner Maven. As a quick intro, Maven helps a wide array of organizations, including public sector customers, with many types of cloud initiatives, whether it's big data and machine learning, building mobile applications, helping design positive online user experiences, moving infrastructure to the cloud, or deploying collaboration tools like email, chat, documents. They even offer strategy and technology advice. Today I've invited Joel Osman from Maven to share more about that journey. Howdy, my friend. Mind sharing a bit about what you do?
So I lead the Maven digital experience design, our UX and design team, as well as our custom application development practice. And I am also the executive sponsor for our virtual career center solution that we've been bringing to market with Google.
Joel, for the folks watching, could you briefly share what was the specific use case your team focused on?
So the primary use case that we looked at is how can we apply leading edge emerging technologies to help people get back to work and to use those tools in such a way that we can augment the personal one-to-one interactions that these agencies had been using with job seekers to help them get back to work.
That's beautiful. Joel, can you touch upon some of the products it took to build the Virtual Career Center?
The VCC comprises a number of different Google technologies. Obviously, the custom pieces that we're building for scheduling, for login authentication, for data pipelines and data analytics are all in Google Cloud Platform. And we're doing custom builds there that integrate into the state's existing systems. So we essentially have taken things like Google Meet, Google Calendar, Google Docs, a lot of those core tool sets that people use in their everyday lives, we've wrapped them in this specific use case around the Virtual Career Center. So when a job coach is going online to update their availability of when they can hold sessions, that's really happening in the background in Google Calendar. And when a job seeker and a job coach get together in a video session, it's actually happening in Google Meet. So those are really the engines of technologies, if you will, that are driving the entire VCC experience.
Now, if you don't mind, let's do a quick walkthrough of what I've learned about your architecture, and then I would like to talk a bit more about some of the design decisions behind all of this. For starters, end users mainly interact via an app built on Angular as the front end and is connected to backend services hosted on Google Kubernetes Engine or relevant Google Workspace products such as Chat, Calendar, Meet, Drive, and Docs. From a user journey perspective, there are three main types of users at this time, and that's job coaches, job seekers, and employers. Job coaches all have Google IDs in the Google Workspace domain and therefore authenticate against the Google Identity Repository. Job seekers are authenticated through a Cognito-based process maintained by the nonprofit I mentioned earlier with the Rhode Island infrastructure team and the Department of Information Technology. For context, prior to the start of the VCC project, the state of Rhode Island was making use of this Cognito Identity Repository to authenticate users going through the unemployment insurance application process. And rather than adding an additional identity repository for users interacting with the state, the decision was made to leverage the existing Cognito repository and its methods of authentication. In this release of the Virtual Career Center, employers participate directly with Google Meet and to an extent Google Calendar, but not the Angular app. To touch upon some of the Google Cloud components specifically, let's start with Firestore, which is a real-time database that keeps data in sync across client apps. It is used as the primary persistence tool for the web pages. It also has a small role to play with the login process for job coaches. Next is BigQuery, which is a serverless warehouse for data, which is why it is used primarily for reporting purposes. Data Studio is used to build filterable dashboards over it. Then there are cloud functions, which are functions you can trigger via snippets of code and are used for a few purposes in the solution, such as populating jobs and training data in the production instance, ensuring consistency between Google Calendar and availability data for job coaches, and for populating BigQuery on a scheduled basis. Then there's the Kubernetes cluster on which server-side code runs in a single region deployment with a minimum of 4 nodes per zone across 3 zones of the US East region. The cluster is set to auto-scale in order to ensure that there is sufficient processing power in the event that there are spikes in activity on the site. From a security standpoint, there's Cloud Armor, which protects applications and websites from attacks, and in this specific implementation, there are several sets of NIST-compliant policies, such as geofencing, which prohibits access to the site from outside of the US. Content is accessed through Google's content distribution network, taking advantage of caching wherever possible. And finally, to manage the lifecycle of the infrastructure, a Terraform script is used, which is an open source tool and is structured into 5 folder environments. Can you share a bit more about what was the experience like for users before and after the Virtual Career Center was launched?
Sure. So in a sense, the solution that we built, it changes the way job seekers interact with the state and the state agency. I mean, before the Virtual Career Center, interested people, there was a website and there were website resources that people would utilize, but it was very much in many states, a hodgepodge of things that training opportunities. There was often a state database of jobs that they could search into, and with some very basic online capabilities. But a lot of things happened physically in the career center. There was a lot of that face-to-face interaction where coaches could really have an impact and help job seekers. And the challenge when we built the Virtual Career Center is how can we keep that intimacy? How can we keep that collaborative nature? And how can we dial up the online tools, in a sense, because in many respects we were forced to, but try to keep that tight interaction? We strive to keep that personal interaction. And I like to say now, a job coach can talk to a job seeker on opposite ends of the state, and they can really focus on getting the right advice, the right coach in front of the right job seeker.
It's exciting to me to see how we can continue to recreate these safe spaces in a virtual format, and on top of that, create better alignment between job coaches and job seekers who have expertise in navigating different services. This is thanks to having more robust ways for job seekers to find coaches with specific backgrounds, such as coaches who have a history with helping college students. And Joel, is there a fun fact you could share with us about the project?
Well, I can share one interesting fact. Before we launched the solution with Rhode Island, which was the initial Virtual Career Center state that we deployed in, we were a little concerned about the adoption from the career coaches. They were already having to deal with working from home. We showed them what it was going to be like. We tried to everything we could to ease them into it, and we did it with a sort of holding our breath. What's going to come of this? We were actually pleasantly surprised. They were absolutely excited for the solution. They were commenting how it's really going to help them out. They couldn't wait. They were asking how soon they can get it. So it was kind of interesting. I think we were overly, not pessimistic, but more concerned of what the reactions would be. But they just embraced it wholeheartedly and were very excited. And it got us very excited that we are doing the right thing and we've created the right experience. And just seeing them absolutely pounce on the solution was very gratifying.
Yeah, I think that fear of whether a new tool is going to be well received or not, especially amongst so much change in the environment, is extremely relatable to IT practitioners. And so your approach is an excellent example of how important it is to scope time to collect user feedback and to do it very early on and as often as possible when designing systems. Another topic I want to touch upon is data. By having more data centralized in a digital format, there are greater opportunities around analytics and insights. What were some design considerations with data?
We're doing a lot with data in the Virtual Career Center solution. In particular, we're looking at analytics, right? If we're going to implement a solution like this, key stakeholders in the state, right up to the governor's offices, They want to know, is it working? Are people finding jobs? Are people having career sessions? So there's a lot of analytics to track what's working and not working. And we can do this in a virtualized solution. And we talk a lot about creating analytics and dashboards, not just for stakeholders within the state who are interested in how the Virtual Career Center is doing, but we talk a lot about employers, because a lot of times employers are posting jobs and want to use those virtual career centers to connect to job seekers. So we're talking about an employer dashboard so they can understand who's out there, who's the possible candidate pool, and how can they see how the job center, the virtual career center can benefit them. And we even talk about personal dashboards.
Do you envision any technical enhancements in the future to this architecture? And is this solution only for state and local entities?
So the Virtual Career Center, or the VCC as we call it, it's actually comprised of three pillars, is the way we talk about it. One is around modernizing digital experiences. And this is taking what is, for many states, an older design, older set of technologies that they used for very basic online functionality and giving that all a new modern look, a modern face, a central place for people to go for all their needs and requirements as a job seeker within the state. So that's the modernizing. The second pillar is around new innovations. Can we bring machine learning and artificial intelligence to job searches? Can we help with resume building or resume parsing, where I can actually take keywords out of a resume and match those to certain jobs, more of in a clustering machine learning model rather than just a raw keyword search. We also looked at chat bots and the ability to take some of the load off the call centers in states and utilizing natural language processing to help guide job seekers and answer questions. So we looked at a number of those types of innovations. The third pillar in the Virtual Career Center is around taking what was a brick and mortar physical career center and putting that online and doing it virtually using Google Meet and other technologies to create a virtual version of what was happening in those physical career centers. So far, every state we've talked to, they tend to choose different things. It's interesting because you think they all need the same, they have the same needs, but their own history, their technology savviness, the needs of their constituents, it tends to vary. And so we find different commissioner stakeholders, different states, they need different pieces. And that's why it's nice to be able to put out we almost call it the menu. We tell states, you can order off the menu. And depending on what you order, obviously they have prices, just like a menu. And so that's how we work through budgets and solutions with them. And it's been interesting to see different states. So beyond just state governments, we've actually had some interesting opportunities to talk about the Virtual Career Center and the technologies and the solution with some counties, with some other countries, and a number of universities. Everywhere you've got people looking for jobs or people looking for additional training or looking to, better their careers, there's an opportunity on the Virtual Career Center.
Well, thank you, Joel, for walking us through so much great information about your journey today. To wrap up and leave on a positive note, what was a memorable moment you experienced?
One of the things that I have said is, throughout the pandemic, I think for me personally, and I think for a lot of the team, we're not frontline workers, we're not healthcare workers, we're not grocery store workers, and we were fell along for the ride in some respects during this whole thing. And so, being able to be part of a solution that is doing our part. I mean, we may be on the IT side of it, but just being able to, do something in our field to help people's lives get better, to help people find jobs coming out of the pandemic, get a job that maybe they lost to the pandemic. It really felt like, doing our part versus being on the sidelines through this whole crisis.
Yes, this work is quite meaningful, and I think it's an epic milestone to be able to scale operations to a virtual format in this way, which speaks to the beauty of building in the cloud and designing for a positive user experience. Well, friends, I left several helpful links in this video's description in case you want to check them out. If you like this type of content, then feel free to watch more episodes on architecting in Google Cloud or subscribe to the channel. Cheers!